Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, President Obama sternly calls on Russia to help stop separatists from blocking the crash site of Malaysia Air Flight 17.
Another San Diego-based company gets $1.5 million tax break to stay put. I'm Peggy Pico with a closer look at how business tax incentives impact the city's revenue base and other city services. Plus, what a San Diego-based literacy group is doing at local farmers markets to teach kids to read.
After decades of prohibition, the hemp business is flourishing in the U.S. again. We'll tell you why some growers, including a San Diego man, keep running into trouble. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. 4 days after a Malaysian airliner was shot down over eastern Ukraine, President Obama is calling for international investigators to have full and immediate access to the crash site. Speaking on the South Lawn of the White House today, President Obama accused pro-Russian separatists in the area of removing evidence and bodies from the crash site and hindering investigators.
Unfortunately, the Russian-backed separatists who control the area continue to block the investigation. They've repeatedly prevented international investigators from gaining full access to the wreckage. As investigators approached, they fired their weapons into the air. These separatists are removing evidence from the crash site, all of which begs the question, what exactly are they trying to hide?
Obama says the burden is on Russia and President Vladimir Putin to compel the separatists to cooperate with the investigation. He also addressed the crisis in the Middle East, calling for an immediate ceasefire there. An Israeli soldier from Southern California was one of 2 Americans killed in the Gaza Strip as fighting intensified over the weekend. 24-year-old Max Steinberg died Sunday. He grew up in the San Fernando Valley but volunteered to join the Israeli Defense Forces. The second American killed was from Texas. 13 Israeli soldiers and 65 Palestinians were killed yesterday during the first major ground battle in 2 weeks between Israel and Hamas. National Guard troops are headed to the Texas-Mexico border. Governor Rick Perry says he's deploying up to 1,000 troops to provide additional support. Much of the area has been overwhelmed by tens of thousands of unaccompanied children illegally entering the U.S., although the White House says there has been a significant drop in the surge since the start of this month. Humanitarian relief is headed to Central America from Sacramento. The aid is coming from California's largest healthcare labor union, volunteers, and a lawmaker. The group is mailing diapers, toys, and books to the Central American children who are coming to California to escape violence in their home countries.
We are asking people to help out the children, the families who have come to this country to escape violence back home in Central America. They are in need. We are asking people to step up and help provide basic supplies for them so that they can have those while their case is being investigated by immigration.
He insists the relief effort is not political but humanitarian, but he does say the immigration crisis is a symptom of a bigger problem, what he calls a broken system that needs to be fixed. SEIU workers helped organize today's rally. San Diego has approved a $10 million agreement with medical equipment maker Illumina. The deal will keep about 300 manufacturing and sales jobs in the city. Illumina was considering going elsewhere. Peggy Pico takes a closer look at the impact of business tax incentives.
How far should the city go to keep companies in San Diego? How do tax incentives impact the city's revenue? And what's Texas got that we don't? Here to help answer those questions is my guest, Alan Jin, professor of economics at the University of San Diego and author of USD's Index of Leading Economic Indicators. Good to see you again, Alan.
Thank you.
Now, Illumina joins craft breweries Ballast Point, AleSmith to become the third San Diego-based company this year to get what could be called a stay here tax incentive. Why do you think there's a surge in handing out these kinds of tax breaks?
I think what we've seen is that there's just increased competition now between cities and states to to lure businesses to the locations or to retain them. And so I think this is just a response by local officials to this increased competition.
I know the Texas Enterprise Fund actually spent more than $60 million to lure companies there, including $8.6 million for Active Network, which was in San Diego. Can we compete with that kind of $8.6 million incentive? It's going to be tough. Again, what they have is a statewide fund that's funded by huge amounts of oil revenue. And so that translates almost $10,000 a job. The incentives we gave Illumina are less, about $5,000 per job. So it was actually, I think, a pretty good deal. In addition to these kind of huge incentives, what does Texas have, do you think, that San Diego really doesn't? I think that the big problem that we have here is the high cost of living, particularly housing. Housing is much less expensive in Texas, and so they're able to offer their employees actually less money to work there. And that's one of the strategies of this Vista Equity Partners, is that they bring companies from California, they reduce costs by hiring low-cost young talent, and then increase their profits. Well, there's no state tax in Texas, right? Yes. And you can buy a mansion for $200,000, at least you used to be able to. So right. That makes sense. Do you think Illumina's 10-year, $1.5 million tax rebate is financially? Do you think it's a good deal for the city? I think it's pretty reasonable. It's less than Texas offered the three companies that left San Diego for that location, and so I think it's a pretty good deal. What do these kinds of tax incentives do to the city's tax revenue base? I mean, are we going to suffer in San Diego, let's say, in infrastructure repairs or other ways that we might need that $1.5 million? That's a big potential problem. If locations compete in terms of giving these incentives, that reduces the revenue that flows in, and that is disruptive then of services like spending on infrastructure and other things that could help improve the lives of people living here. I know a 2012 New York Times report found that many cities actually lose a considerable amount of revenue by offering these business tax rebates. As an economist, do you see a trend in other cities as to this being beneficial or not being beneficial, or is there really much data on it? This has been a big issue in local economic development for the last couple of decades at least. Cities have just been lavishing these incentives on companies and not done a lot of real analysis in terms of the overall benefits. And I think in a lot of cases they spend way too much in luring companies or keeping companies in their vicinity. Meaning they can't get it back. Right. Build it up in the sales tax. It just does not generate the tax revenue that they lose. What's to stop every company in town of any substantial size from threatening to leave and basically saying, give us a tax incentive or we're going to go elsewhere? That's a potential worry then. This sets a precedent. Other companies then might ask for similar type of deals, in which case the tax base could be impacted negatively. And are there, I don't know, in your readings or your studies, if you've heard that there's certain criteria, though, you just really can't walk up and say, I'm leaving, give me money. Right. Usually they target companies that generate high-paying jobs, and so you have to meet that criteria. The thing is, though, a lot of companies fall in that category here in San Diego, and they could take this as a sign that they'll ask for the same type of incentives. Do you think that this has sort of set a precedent? Do you think that the city is going to now have to continue to offer tax incentives to be competitive with other states and cities? I think it's going to have to. Again, there's just going to be a lot of competition. A lot of it from Texas. They got a lot of money to spend. They want these good-paying jobs relocated there, and so I think the city's going to have to respond. Do you think, as an economist, is there a better way to keep cities here? It's tough because it's a bad situation because companies can play cities off of each other in getting these incentives, and so you got to balance it out, the benefits of keeping the jobs and the revenue from the extra income versus what you're going to give up in terms of the incentives. All right, looks like we're going to see a little bit more of this in the future. We will keep in touch with you on that, economics professor Alan Jin. Thank you. Thank you.
From superstars to superheroes, San Diego's largest annual convention returns later this week, and the historic Gaslamp Quarter is already being transformed to welcome visitors to Comic-Con. Transportation alone generated nearly $10 million in revenue during last year's Comic-Con International, with folks taking everything from the trolley, cabs, and rental cars to pedicabs and two-wheel forms of transport such as Segways and bikes. Food is another big-ticket item. In 2013, visitors and guests spent more than $11 million at restaurants and other eateries during the four-day pop culture event. Ashley Lavelle has been visiting San Diego from Ireland for the past month.
It's getting way busier, all the hostels and hotels and stuff are booked out, and there's a great buzz around, and I think there's lots of excitement for Comic-Con.
But like so many of us, she'll have to experience it vicariously through all the buses and buildings decked out with movie ads, superstars, and superheroes. She's getting ready to pack it up before the real crowds come to town.
We'll definitely come back. It's so sad to go home to freezing Ireland, but we can't wait to come back in the future.
The Convention Center Corporation says San Diego hotels generated nearly $25 million during the last Comic-Con, with the average room going for about $225 a night, a significant jump from the $165 before and after the con.
Well, we've actually been preparing for Comic-Con for an entire year.
Raina Kay is with the Hard Rock Hotel, directly across the street from the Convention Center.
We start preparing for the next year. We've got all of our rooms booked. We've got branding throughout the whole hotel, parties every night. There's a lot that goes into preparing for Comic-Con, and nothing else in the city compares.
Visitors also spent more than $5 million shopping last year and generated more than, get this, 193 tons of trash during Comic-Con, which, by the way, kicks off officially Thursday and runs right through the weekend. San Diego State sports teams have enjoyed success these past few years, and the university has built a dedicated fan base. Now it's trying to own some of its fans' enthusiasm, as we hear from KPBS education reporter Matt Bowler.
If you've been to an SDSU basketball game, you can't escape it. When the students start to cheer, it's impossible not to hear it. Now, San Diego State wants to own it? How can you own a cheer when it's turned into a slogan, says attorney Brian Watkins?
When you trademark a slogan, such as I believe we're going to win, it's not saying that nobody else can ever say that, but it's marketing it a bit.
And that's what SDSU wants to do, turn a cheer into a slogan and to own it. University spokesperson Greg Block says it doesn't matter that SDSU didn't create it.
The community and our fans across the country started doing it and using it, and so Aztec Shops put it on a shirt. And once you put it on a shirt, then you own that mark.
State even made a cheer-themed commercial with the former mayor in it.
That we will win.
Still, it wasn't invented at State. SDSU alum Corey Strong says he first used the cheer way back in 1999 while a midshipman at the Naval Academy. But he's also an Aztec. He got his MBA there. Strong says he knows how the cheer came to SDSU.
And there's a popular hangout spot for midshipmen in San Diego, and that's Shore Club right there in PB, right by the water. That's where they watch their games. And so if there's any San Diego State students that were there at any point, probably in the past 7-8 years, because I used to hang out there, they heard the cheer.
The trademark application is in a period when it can be challenged, and that's what the Naval Academy is going to do. On Facebook, the Academy says the I Believe chant should be for everyone. Strong says the Academy doesn't really want to own the cheer.
What the Naval Academy is trying to say is that this has become popular use. It's gotten so big that since everyone uses it, everyone should be able to use it, right?
And now the courts will decide the future of a cheer. Matt Bowler, KPBS News.
The county health agency says a man from Santee is the first to get West Nile virus this year. It was detected in the 43-year-old when blood he donated was screened. The last time someone in San Diego got the mosquito-borne virus was 2012. Last year, the state health department reported 15 West Nile virus-related deaths, but none so far this year. A new UC San Diego study suggests the majority of parents don't recognize the health risks of their obese children. It surveyed about 200 parents of mostly obese youngsters. More than 30% perceive their kids' health as excellent or very good, while a quarter didn't see their kids' weight as a problem. The research also found parents who talk with their doctors about ways to eat healthier were more likely to take action to challenge or rather change their child's diet. Hemp is taking root again in the U.S. after decades of prohibition. The latest farm bill green-lighted hemp on farms that haven't been able to grow the crop since World War II. In order to plant legal hemp, farmers need legal hemp seeds. One San Diego farmer would be happy to provide the seeds free of charge, but KPBS reporter David Wagner says he's having a hard time getting them out.
Then we have some salve.
Chris Boucher is the kind of hemp advocate who's always wearing at least one item of hemp clothing.
But it's actually very comfortable.
Today, it's a hemp shirt. How do I know that? Because it says hemp right on the pocket.
I am the vice president of U.S. Hemp Oil.
At his company's office in San Diego, Boucher holds up a bucket full of seeds. He hopes these seeds will be used to make many, many more hemp shirts and cosmetics and foods and car materials. But the DEA would consider this a controlled substance?
You could probably go to prison for about 10 years having this bucket of seed, probably, if they wanted to, depending on who interpreted the law.
The Drug Enforcement Agency interprets the law by lumping hemp in with marijuana. The way they see it, both plants belong to the cannabis family. Both contain the psychoactive ingredient THC. Both are illegal. However, Boucher says good luck getting high off something with so little THC.
There was an old saying back in the 20s, only dope smoke rope.
But in the latest farm bill, Congress gave states the go-ahead to approve hemp cultivation for research. Plenty of farmers have now obtained hemp growing permits from the Department of Agriculture. But when it came time to find seeds, these farmers scrambled to find a reliable supplier.
We've had hundreds and hundreds of calls from different states, whether it's here in California, Kentucky, Colorado. I mean, our phones ring every day about people wanting to grow hemp.
The bucket in Boucher's office pales in comparison to his total seed supply.
So we've got about 7.5 metric tons, I believe somewhere around 14 or 15,000 pounds of seed.
But recently, 2 of those metric tons were seized by the DEA in Los Angeles.
We had these seeds promised to people in Colorado, in Kentucky, that they prepared their fields, they were ready to plant, and they're not going to get their seed.
The seizure wasn't exactly a surprise. Earlier this year, the DEA tried to prevent seeds from getting to farmers in Kentucky. The DEA eventually gave up the seeds. Some of Boucher's donations are now in the soil at Murray State University. Boucher has been fighting this fight long enough to know nothing ever goes smoothly with hemp.
Nice field right there.
20 years ago, he made hemp history in the Imperial Valley.
This field you see behind me here is a hemp field. The location you're looking at is Raleigh, California.
He got permission from the local USDA research center to grow a test crop on a 1-acre plot, but the crop didn't last long. Local drug enforcement agents came out and tested the plants.
So the bottom line is that your plants do have THC level.
Even just trace levels, the crop was plowed under.
You know, believe it or not, I thought within 2 years we would have a factory up and running. There'd be 10,000 acres. And here it is 20 years later, you know, marijuana is legal, but industrial hemp isn't.
Boucher plans to challenge the DEA's latest seizure in court. Despite all his legal entanglements, Boucher sees hope for hemp. He says there's been more momentum on the issue in the last 6 months than in the last 25 years. He hopes to one day source his hemp not from Canada or France or China, but from a few miles away in the Imperial Valley. David Wagner, KPBS News.
We did reach out to the Drug Enforcement Agency for comment on the story, but haven't heard anything back. A San Diego nonprofit is helping children learn to read in a unique way. Peggy Pico tells us how.
About 20% of San Diego County adults are functionally illiterate. The nonprofit group Traveling Stories is working to improve the odds at home and abroad by starting with children under reading tents set up at farmers markets in City Heights and El Cajon. Here with further details are my guests, Emily Moberly, founder of Traveling Stories, and Jose Cruz, CEO at San Diego's Council on Literacy. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Emily, why did you start the Traveling Stories tent?
Well, I started Traveling Stories because I was a teacher in Honduras, and my students, who were teenagers, had never had access to books. They didn't have a library, they didn't have a bookstore. And so I provided books, and I got to watch them fall in love with reading for the first time. And so they inspired me. If I could help them fall in love with reading, why not try to do that for kids all over the world and here in my own backyard?
As far as the farmers markets, the Traveling Stories, that's where the tent comes in.
Yes.
What happens there?
Well, every Saturday and every Thursday, we host a story tent at the farmers markets in City Heights and El Cajon. And essentially, it's just a tent. We have carpets, we have books, we have cushions, we have prizes, and we have at least 50 kids a week who come and read with us. They read out loud to volunteers, they earn book bucks, and then they can earn prizes.
Let's talk about the prizes and book bucks. Why do that?
It motivates them to read, and it also assigns value to reading. It's not just, we're not just saying read because it's aesthetically good for you. We're saying read because you can earn things and you can improve your opportunities.
And you have a particular story of one little boy who used his incentive bucks. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was just a few weeks ago. I was talking to Arbob, who is 7 years old, and he's from Sudan, and he comes to the story tent every single week in City Heights. And he has a wallet that he made out of paper full of book bucks. We're talking like at least 50 book bucks. And so I'm like, Arbob, why are you not spending your money? What are you saving up for? And what kind of prizes should I get? And he leans down and he looks at his shoe, and I notice there's some tape covering a hole. And he reluctantly kind of says, maybe some new shoes. That would be a cool prize. And it broke my heart because, here he is 7. Like, I don't think I would have asked for new shoes when I was 7. Maybe like a new baby doll.
It had a real impact, it sounds like.
Yeah.
He understood the value of reading and sort of where that might take him.
The really cool thing about it, is, I could have gone out and been generous and made myself a hero and buy him shoes and give them to him. But instead, what we're doing is we're providing shoes as a prize. He's reading books, earning book bucks, and then he's going to be able to buy those shoes on his own. So he's going to be walking around school and the park with shoes that he bought for himself. And it's just, helping him develop independence and empowerment. And also motivating him to read more.
And it is an empowerment issue. Jose, give us a snapshot of the literacy level among children here in San Diego.
What's taking place now is about half of our children are not proficient in reading. We're looking at the 3rd graders, and then you have a percentage of individuals age 8 who are at basic or below basic in reading. And so we have a lot of work to do. That's why the work that Emily's group is doing with Traveling Stories it's vital. It's filling in the gaps because we know that we're winning and losing the battle in the home. That when we read to children and when we have books in the home, when there's language exchange, when there's oracy, which comes before literacy and numeracy, when that's taking place, good things happen. Children are ready for school, and so that's the work that Emily's group is doing.
Let me get this straight. About half of the children in San. What do you think's behind that?
I think you're looking at a number of things, and one, of course, is the social economics. Second languages do come into play. I think we're also looking at just how our society has changed, where we're very visual oriented and computer oriented. As much as you still have to read to use a computer, people aren't reading as much anymore. And I think just the lifestyles that we live and looking at the things that adults have to do, especially if they're low income families, there's not that time that's put aside, nor the resources, so that what you see happening in homes, or what you want to see happening in homes, where children are being read to every day, where there are books. We shouldn't assume that's happening, because in a lot of homes it is absolutely not.
And I know that's where your program comes in, but your website, Emily, says Traveling Stories, outsmarting poverty one book at a time. And I know this referenced the 7 libraries that you've established in several countries, I believe, including El Salvador, Sudan, and the Philippines. Where do you get the books for these libraries, and how are libraries and reading, do you feel, tied to reducing poverty?
Yeah, well, we get our books from a lot of different locations, individuals, authors, publishers. And so we're really fortunate to have a lot of partners help with that. As far as how it deals with poverty, I think there's a really strong tie between illiteracy and poverty. When you think about it, if you're not able to read or communicate, you need someone else's help for everything, for reading your kid's report card, for reading signs on the road, all of those things. So by helping someone develop strong literacy skills, you're giving them the tools they need to be independent. You're empowering them to to not necessarily need help or charity, and to develop better critical thinking skills to address the issues in their own community.
You know, Jose, how about here? Does the Literary Council here also need books or volunteers to help in this effort?
Yes, we represent a network of 27 youth, adult, and family literacy programs, Traveling Stories being one of those organizations. And we know that it's not just one book or two books that you're seeing in a lot of households where children are being read to. We may be able to give out those books, but we certainly need a lot more.
Well, I want to let folks know that we've got more information on how to donate books and how to volunteer for either of your programs or both or even more on our website, kpbs.org. Emily Moberly and Jose Cruz, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And we are in for a gradual warming trend. Let's take a look at the forecast. Warm even along the coast later through the week. We're talking mid to upper 70s beachside with a mix of sun and clouds. Likewise for the inland valleys, temperatures there much warmer, reaching 90 by Thursday. In the mountains, plenty of sun, low 80s and 90s. And the desert just downright hot, near 114 degrees by Wednesday. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night.